A country smaller than many cities has spent decades as the place where people live the longest. Not Japan. Not Sweden. Not even Iceland. So how did a tiny nation become the champion of human longevity? And why did the world suddenly begin living years longer than before? The answer is hidden inside more than 6 decades of data. A story of rising nations, falling champions, and humanity's extraordinary journey toward a longer life. Welcome to Data Race 360. In the year 1960, the country with the highest life expectancy on Earth was Iceland. People there could expect to live just over 74 years. Today, that number would not even guarantee first place. At the beginning of our story, the world of longevity belonged almost entirely to Northern Europe. Iceland, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands. These nations had already built strong healthcare systems and high living standards. The gap between the leaders was incredibly small. Sometimes only a few months. Sometimes only a few days. The race was competitive. But it was also predictable. Few expected that this balance would soon be challenged. By 1970, a new name appeared near the top. Andorra. A tiny country hidden in the mountains between France and Spain. Its population was small. Its territory was small. Yet it suddenly stood among the world's longevity giants. It was the first sign that size did not determine how long people lived. A country did not need millions of people to become a leader. It only needed the right conditions. The old order was beginning to crack. And an even bigger surprise was approaching. By 1980, another nation entered the elite group. Japan. At the time, few people would have guessed what this country was about to achieve. Only decades earlier, Japan had been devastated by war. Now it was becoming one of the healthiest societies on Earth. Year after year, Japanese life expectancy kept rising. The country's rapid economic growth was transforming everyday life. Nutrition improved. Healthcare expanded. People simply began living longer. Japan was no longer chasing the leaders. It was becoming one of them. And the race for longevity was no longer a European story. For the first time, Asia had entered the battle. The next decade changed everything. By 1990, the number one position belonged to a country that many people had barely heard of. Monaco. A tiny principality on the Mediterranean coast. Smaller than many neighborhoods around the world. Yet its people were now living longer than anyone else on Earth. It overtook Andorra. It moved ahead of Japan. And it claimed the crown of human longevity. Most observers expected another country to replace it sooner or later. They were wrong. Because Monaco's reign was only beginning. By 2000, Monaco was no longer a surprise. It had become the standard. The place where people lived the longest. For years, it remained ahead of the rest of the world. Sometimes by only a few months. Sometimes by more than an entire year. In a race where every extra month became harder to gain, that was an enormous advantage. But something remarkable was happening behind Monaco's long reign. Japan was becoming a global symbol of longevity. The country did not always hold the number one position. Yet whenever people talked about long lives, they talked about Japan. Its citizens routinely lived beyond 80 years. Then beyond 81. Then beyond 82. An entire generation witnessed something their grandparents could barely imagine. Living into old age was becoming normal. And Japan proved that rising prosperity could dramatically extend human life. But Japan's achievement was bigger than a number. It changed how the world thought about aging. For generations, living beyond 80 seemed extraordinary. In Japan, it became increasingly common. Researchers around the world began searching for the secret. There was no single answer. Longer lives were built slowly. Through better healthcare, better nutrition, and decades of social progress. But the race was changing once again. The world's longest lives were no longer concentrated in Europe alone. By 2010, another group of challengers was emerging. Switzerland had climbed into the elite ranks. And in Asia, two remarkable stories were unfolding. Singapore and South Korea. Both countries had transformed rapidly during the previous decades. Both had invested heavily in development and healthcare. And both were now moving closer to the world's longevity leaders. The center of gravity was shifting eastward. The competition for the top positions was becoming tighter than ever. The world had entered a new age of longevity. By 2020, the highest life expectancy on Earth had reached more than 86 years. The numbers would have seemed impossible at the beginning of our story. Singapore was among the leaders. South Korea had joined the world's elite. Japan remained one of the longest-living societies on the planet. Humanity had gained years of life that earlier generations could never have imagined. Then came an unexpected shock. COVID-19. The pandemic reminded the world that progress is never guaranteed. In many countries, life expectancy suddenly fell. Years of improvement were interrupted. The data delivered a powerful message. Even the healthiest societies remain vulnerable. The journey toward longer lives can move backward as well as forward. For decades, the trend had pointed in only one direction. Upward. Year after year. Then the world experienced something almost unthinkable. A sudden interruption. The pandemic became a reminder that longevity is not guaranteed. Progress can take decades to build. And only a short time to lose. But when the world slowly recovered, the race continued. And one nation still stood at the top. By 2024, Monaco remained the champion. Its average life expectancy had climbed to around 86.5 years. San Marino was close behind. Switzerland remained among the leaders. New challengers had appeared. Old champions had faded. Yet one fact remained extraordinary. In the beginning of our story, the world's leader barely exceeded 74 years. Today, the best-performing nations are approaching 90. In just over 6 decades, humanity has added more than a decade of life to the very top of the rankings. That may be one of the greatest achievements hidden inside modern history. And something else had changed. The competition itself. In the early years, countries fought to add entire years to human life. Today, the leaders compete for a few months. Sometimes even a few weeks. That may be the clearest sign of how far humanity has already come. This race was never really about rankings. It was about people. About healthier lives. Longer lives. And the remarkable ability of societies to change the human experience itself. The next great question is still unanswered. How much longer can we live? And which country will be the first to push the limits even further? Subscribe to Data Race 360 for more data-driven stories.